All right, I wanted to do a quick little walk around of this trailer. I know everyone's been asking me, why are we getting a trailer? How did you get it? Why did you get it? Well, simply, this is where I kind of started. I started in the service business. I was doing parking lot restoration back when, I was 18. It was really good. I encourage people, I found my first job on Craigslist and made a lot of money doing it. And then I got into manufacturing and been there ever since, over 12 years now. So, lived in Palm Bay, moved back to Melbourne. And when I got back to Melbourne, I ended up, finding a house with a decent shop. And I was saying to myself, what better way than to dive back into the service industry and do some research and talk about different options of what's available, what I can meter on my own accord while still working, all that good stuff. So I acquired this 2024 D trailer, which is a purpose-built soft wash trailer. It has quite a few amenities and application tools here. You look at it, most people are going to look at this and they're going to be like, wow, that's a lot of machinery, that's a lot of stuff that aren't in the business. And the first thing is, you're looking at it and it's sure size, right? You've got two 200-gallon tanks, the two blue tanks. You got your massive Pressure Pro skid, which has your GX690, which is a big V-twin Honda. You got your belt-driven pump, super reliable. You got your diesel boiler. You got your temperature ranges here. It's an on-off switch. The only way that will actually work is if this pressure flow senses water flow, and then this will kick on, consume some diesel, and heat up the water. But when I first acquired this, I took a lot of time and took a lot of effort to upgrade and modify and make sure everything is what it should be. Replacing hose clamps, some bad designs, some things that I thought, coming from engineering didn't make sense, should have been mitigated. But here we are. The other big things to pay attention to is you've got your whole control system here. So Midwest Soft Wash makes this system. And basically, it's a wireless on-off switch for your chemical downstreaming in soap. So I usually have it off because I have it on a tender, battery tender. And if I'm, let's just say, all the way on the other side of the house, I come over here to my trusty remote, turn that on, opens a little actuator. And when it's green, I'm shooting chem. And when it's not, I'm shooting fresh water. So people ask, okay, what kind of chemicals are you shooting? And for the most part, the industry standard is going to be your SH or sodium hypochlorite. This is just pool bleach. And, ties into the next discussion here, which is going to be your actual, your metering system or your manifold. So you've got your water, your surfactant, your bleach, and then I added another one here so that I can run some neutralizer through, bleach neutralizer, because the diaphragm pump runs chemical through it versus the front Honda up here does not. You can downstream, I'll show you that in a second. But for the most part, what's awesome about this with the Midwest system is I can set all my percentages. So obviously, you're going to keep that on full unless you want to go to a crazy hot mix and, lower your content of water. You've got your surfactant. You could do, your off 0.5%, 1%, 3, all the way up to, full. But I usually keep that at either half or 1%. And you've got your SH. So your chemical ratios are going to be dependent on the client's needs and what you're running into. Ultimately, from all my experience and research and discussions, you're going to be very dependent on what you're applying it to. So concrete, you could do pre-treat, post-treat, you're talking 3-4%. But again, it's all going to be dependent on what you're actually doing. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of things that I've learned. I've done a lot of research and a lot of there's plenty of lessons learned out there. You got guys out there that just start doing things and they open this all the way up, start spraying, and then you're damaging property. And that's not what we want to do. So you want to be very attentive to what you're actually doing. And the great thing about actually adding this extra valve here is I'm able to not only run surfactant, or not surfactant, bleach neutralizer, is I can run other chemicals or any other solution that I want to spray. And so you're looking at all of this, and you're asking yourself, okay, we've got all these different hoses, everything's going on. So your yellow tank is your SH tank. It's 80 gallons, 2 fresh waters. They're both tied together. They've got little, if you look down here, they've got an actual bridge that connects both tanks. So these equalize, they're vented. And my fill, I've got a pre-filter. That's a whole other lesson learned. I've got a automatic valve in there so you don't overfill the tanks, but that manifold ties into this diaphragm pump. And so the biggest thing about the diaphragm pump is you're running chemical directly through this. And with that, if you're running a caustic chemical like SH, it's gonna, a lot of people don't talk about this, but it's gonna eat up the internals. And I have plenty of examples of that. This is something I had to do, but here you go. Good example. So if you can see that, bleach does not pair well with metal. Even though this is probably stainless, over time that caustic, not cleaning your equipment, not doing the proper preventive maintenance, you're gonna run into issues where the rubbers, the seals, the metals are gonna get eaten up. That's why I added that availability to neutralize those chemicals if I need to. But this pump's awesome. It's AR45, powered by a Honda. And what this does is it takes either fresh water or a chemical blend, and it shoots it out. Yeah, you can look at the gauge, but you're never going to shoot 300 psi. I'm usually like 150 plus coming out of the gun, but you're gonna shoot that at high pressure, high volume at 11 gallons a minute onto the actual property or asset you're trying to clean. And it's very effective. It works very well. And one of the things that I did a lot of research on was like, if I was going to get into this business, what am I going to do as far as being quick, efficient, and I can pass that cost savings to the customer, right? You got people out there that, they go buy a pressure washer from Home Depot if it's resident or professional, and yeah, they'll get the job done, but it's going to take you half a day. With a soft wash application like this, I can shoot 11 gallons a minute. I can drain both these tanks in no time. And that's why they're called buffer tanks, is it compensates the consumption rate of this pump so that I don't run out of water, because the average, house bib is not going to supplement 11 gallons a minute. With that said, you also have the other side of this. You got the soft wash side, you got the pressure side. And on the actual V-twin on the front, you're at 3,500 psi, and that's going to be running your surface cleaner, this is a massive one. Again, cost savings. 24-inch surface cleaner, that's going to get a driveway done quick. I can charge less, save the customer money, and make me money. But the big thing is, this has 2 legs. So you got the belt-driven pump. It comes over here to the ball valve, and this is going to come out at 3,500 psi. And obviously you can scale this down based on the tip sizes, but this is going to mount on your surface cleaner or whatever wand that you're going to run. And then on the back side of the actual rig, you've got another leg, which, keep in mind, you notice there's no attachment on here, right? Just be mindful. I know everyone's done this. You can imagine 3,500 psi coming out of here if this ball valve was open. But this is your downstream kit that the previous owner installed. And so what this does is allow you to run chemical without running it through the actual pump up front. This is a diaphragm pump. It's designed to run chemical to some extent, but the machine up front is not designed for that. So what that means is up here, you got your actual dip. And keep in mind, you do not want this to be metal. You can already see just this metal screen on the end. It's just getting slightly corroded. Actually, it's just an end cap. But still, you do not want anything metal in a SH tank. It's going to get eaten up. But what you do is you just dip this in there, open that ball valve, and you're going to be running your SH mix to downstream at a higher rate of pressure. You definitely can shoot a lot farther at 3,500 psi, aperture down. Very effective, very useful. But that's part of the reason I bought this trailer. There's a lot of fundamentals that went into, okay, what are you gonna buy? You have capital to buy something, what are you gonna buy? You're gonna buy something that's fast, effective, easy to use, makes sense. But overall, it's fairly complex, but it's very simple at the same time. The complexity is really gonna come from taking care of your equipment, understanding what is going on with your equipment. I spent a lot of time doing PMs, changing spark plugs, spark gaps, oil changes, fittings, all this other stuff that no one talks about. It's very important. I mean, I do that same thing with my cars. You know, I have a 3 Series. She's a little beaten up at 225,000 miles, but same rules apply. You've got to put in what you want out. It even comes down to making sure your rig has proper PPE, cleaning materials, rope, everything. You got extra parts in here. If something goes down, you're able to fix it on the fly. Not give the customer a bad answer saying, "Oh, my equipment's broken." That's really not an excuse. If that happens, that's just I did a bad job if my equipment's down. So you need to be able to have that. So all these things are going through my head as I'm going through and upgrading. Even down to upgrading the gun. This thing's awesome. I made sure to update this all to stainless. Even the way you attach the filling couplers. Something as stupid as, on your output side, you're not going to want this on your output side because you're going to shoot out the O-ring. No one talks about that. So that was one of the things I did. You've got, your ratios, what chemicals to use, what chemicals remove rust. So you got to do research on that. What actually works, what's safe for the customer. So there's a ton of stuff about that. And you gotta pay attention. You can't just, I'm just gonna do this and willy-nilly and figure it all out. So everyone asks the question, what is Christian doing? Well, Christian's innovating, thinking, doing, offering service. I encourage, I don't ever bash other companies. I mean, if anything, I encourage other companies to, work with me, work around me, whatever, if they need help, small guys, if they don't have the means of doing a job, need some help. I've never been in the field of sitting there and alienating myself. I'm just getting started. Who knows where I'll be in a year, if it works, if it doesn't work. But the reality is if you're going to try something, you're going to do it quick, efficient, and do a good job at it. So just wanted to kind of give you a run around on this whole trailer and the fundamentals and thoughts that I had. And that's all she wrote.